You're alive, Chair.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this Northwest Area Planning meeting held today, 8th of February 2023. My name's Councillor Maddie Thompson. I'm the chairman of this committee. Before we commence the business of the meeting, there are a few housekeeping issues to run through. One is we're streaming this meeting live as well as recording, and by being present in the meeting, you're giving your consent to being recorded. When invited to speak, please turn on your microphone and speak clearly, referencing a page or paragraph number when referring to the agenda papers. Keep your contributions as clear and concise as possible, and ensure your microphones remain off when not speaking, as this is important for the live streaming to be heard clearly. Finally, can I draw your attention to the notices on the agenda papers regarding the different levels within the chamber, and advise that the fire exit is the door behind the top table. Members, can I draw your attention please to the members update, which has further information on item 8 on the agenda. Right, so now we have apologies for absence. Mr. Jones, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. We have apologies from Councillor Stevens.
Thank you very much. Right, item 3 is the minutes. It's recommended the minutes of the meeting held on 11th of January, found on pages 7 to 12, are approved as a true and accurate record. May I take them as read, members?
No, right.
Thank you. I so propose. Seconded? Right. Does anyone have any matters of accuracy to raise? Okay, can we agree those by assent, please, members? Excellent, thank you. All right, moving on again. Item 4, declarations of interest. To disclose the existence and nature of any disclosable pecuniary interests, other registrable interests and non-registrable interests relating to items of business on the agenda, having regard to paragraph 9 and appendix B of the Code of Conduct for members. And members are reminded they are also required to disclose any such interests as soon as they become aware, should the need arise through the meeting. Members, anybody? Councillor Durham.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Chairman, I do have a non-pecuniary interest as a member of Essex County Council, but having consulted the monitoring officer, I have a disclosable pecuniary interest in relation to item 5 on tonight's agenda, because I'm a professional civil funeral celebrant, and although being self-employed, I do work for some local funeral directors, so I will be leaving the room at the time of that agenda item. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Nobody else? Okay. So we are moving on to our first actual planning application, which is land opposite St Margaret's Church, Maldon Road, Woodham, Mortimer. I think this
Chairman, interest. Thank you.
Your moment to move. We will endeavour to remember to retrieve you, Councillor Durham. We do have a public speaker on this to follow the presentation, and that will be Mr. Richard Evans. So we'll have the presentation first. Thank you. So that's. Oh, I apologise, it's Mr. Johnson.
Yeah, sorry, just get my. Just bear with me a second. Okay. Right. Thank you, Chairman. This application proposes the erection of a crematorium with ceremony hall, memorial, arboretum, and associated land use, restoration of Cooper's monument, vehicle access, parking, landscaping, pedestrian crossing, and the diversion of a footpath. Yeah. So we start off with the location plan. So we can see the site outlined there, Maldon Road at the top. The site is to the south and sort of extending towards the southwest. And here we have the block plan in more detail. And then it's quite small, so a bit difficult to see, but you can see the proposed buildings and car parking down in the southwestern area. Extensive landscaping around the site there. Just to the north of that is an existing tree line and hedging, sort of shielding that element of the site from significant public views looking south. And if we extend towards the sort of more north eastern part over there, we can see the secondary car parking in that sort of horseshoe arrangement there. The access just to the, again, sort of northeast of that, that's the proposed new access. At the road there, we have the new proposed right-hand turn off the A414 into the site. And over to the right of the cursor, we can see the obelisk, and just south of that, we can see an avenue of proposed trees, which frames part of the public footpath, which then extends again following the boundary sort of southwest and down along the site and down that edge there and across. The officer's recommendation is to approve, subject to the conditions set out in section 8. The summary of the report, section 3.1, it states the application is on the southern side of Maldon Road. The application site is currently open grassland, and immediately west of an existing agricultural site. So this site is part of a much wider site. The report sets out that in terms of the area and its context within the sort of wider agricultural field, it amounts to approximately about 7.4% of the area itself. This is fairly significant in terms of the impact that the development would have upon the nature of the landscape there, the quality of the landscape, and its overall impact in its wider context. We can see again just north of Maldon Road, there's a number of listed buildings. We've got Church of St. Margaret's, Woodham Mortimer Hall, etc. Now, just in detail, the crematorium building would be a part 2-story, part single-story building. So if we just, we've got the proposed floor plans there. The top plan shows the roof. It's, as I said, it's a part 2, part single-story building. To the right of there, this sort of coloured area, that's the sort of arrival area. The actual, if we look down at the bottom, we can see the actual access. If we just take the cursor slightly up, we can see the access into the main building is just where the just where the cursor is. The administrative rooms are to the right of the building, and as we go into the hall, we've got the ceremonial rooms there, and then to the rear of that, that's obviously where the crematory activity takes place, and further to the right of that is obviously the servicing area. So if we move on to the next slide, we can again just see some of the proposed elevations. This is looking towards the entrance area, which is in the just by the junction between the 2-story element and the single-story element. If we can just have the cursor in that area there, around, yep, just over to the right, sort of in that area there. And just over to the left, right over to the left again, that's the sort of ceremonial access way that we saw in the plans. And on the elevation below, that's again just looking from the other side. So again, if we just move on to the next slide, again just showing various elevations. To the left, we have the well, that's where the sort of ceremonial area is at the front there, and the elevation to the right, that's a section actually cutting through that area. Those windows you can see on the ground floor, they serve the administrative rooms there, and the bottom picture just shows the rear elevation. To the just where the cursor is there, we can see the chimney. And again, this is just the various sections. Let's move to the next one. And as is headed by the slide here, we can see the cremator and gas cleaning arrangements, but that's showing the machinery That's within that rear sort of two-story part of the building. Again, these are this is titled hard works plan, but this is where we can see the sort of solid areas, the road surfacing and the car parking. And that's just a detailed hard work plan, just sort of annotating the various surfaces, etc. And these are the soft landscaping works, the landscaping enhancement through trees and planting, etc. And that's just again a key of the detailed soft work plan. This slide shows the access arrangements. So as is set out in the report, the existing bus stop is going to be moved from, if we can just take the cursor over to the right of the proposed access, we can see an annotation saying existing bus stop to be relocated, which is currently in that area, which is where the access is arranged, and it's been moved over to that side. That's in a little bit more detail there. And this slide shows the various vehicle access arrangements. It's a right-hand turn coming from the west, turning into the site. So we can just see the movements there. Just more detail on the vehicle access arrangements. And these are some photographs of the site on the opposite side of the road. Again, just more street scene photographs. If we can just go back to, there's a plan, just going back to the access arrangements, there is a plan, right, that plan there. Now, sorry, I forgot to mention this, but this was a matter of detail that was raised. The arrangement for the pedestrian crossing, which was requested, if we can take the cursor sort of up, heading towards the left of the frame along the road. Yep, just in that area there. That's the area of the proposed crossing, which again is part of the proposals and has been agreed with Highways. Thank you for that. So in summary, the application has been considered against our policies. In terms of the landscape and visual impacts, is considered an acceptable impact. There is no, or in terminology of the NPPF, as we say in our reports, there's less than a substantial harm to listed buildings, which are quite a significant way away. And the views that we have here demonstrate the sort of distances involved and what you potentially can or can't see through the development, and in particular the middle frame of that slide there sort of sets out the kind of area within which the building would occupy, and the views and the intervening structures and natural landscaping that again would shield the development from longer views from various areas. As mentioned, the impact on listed buildings is considered acceptable. In terms of the need, the report sets out the need and the criteria at which the need is established, the overcapacity of existing crematoriums, particularly in Chelmsford, the reports and support in this application from local crematoriums about the additional need, the travel times to a crematorium in terms of what's expected to reach a crematorium, the 30 minute travel distance for cortege. These are the matters set out within the report. Officers are quite satisfied, particularly given that a number of these matters have been tested on appeal. Having regard to the policies in the local plan and national planning policy. So, subject to the conditions in section 8, this application is recommended for approval. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Right, so members, we have Mr. Richard Evans, please, to come forward. Pick any chair you like the look of, please. Make yourself comfortable. Please use the microphone that's being turned on for you. We have the timer up. You have 2 minutes precisely, and I do mean precisely. I really do chop people off mid-word. I'm very sorry. It has to be the same for everyone. So whenever you're ready, thank you.
Okay, I'm the owner of Maldon Fields, and I've worked in crematoria all my working life, having previously led the Westerly Group, where I built 21 crematoria and looked after some 35 in total. But this crematorium will be independent, family-run, in close liaison with local funeral directors, clergy and officiants. We do not make speculative applications. We spend years looking for the right site, and only in place where there is a genuine, proven need. Anyone who has suffered bereavement knows that there is an urgent and growing need in this district for a new crematorium. Existing choices are remote and overly busy with delays of 3 weeks or more, especially at this time of year. Chelmsford is particularly struggling and was never designed back in 1961 to look after 2,000 cremations a year. Crematoria are a special case. Numerous appeal decisions confirm they have to be built in the countryside and away from settlements. This site is a tranquil setting, a good distance from residential properties, but close to the population we intend to serve. The building, whilst at 2 heights, will be a single story and will sit neatly against a backdrop of existing trees, well screened from the main road and able to offer the privacy which is so important to the bereaved. It's been designed to respect the rural character of the area, blending into surroundings, with all the existing landscape features retained, with many more trees and hedgerows planted, greatly enhancing the ecological value of the site, with the layout amended in consideration to our neighbours. Only a fraction of the site will be built upon, with added heritage benefits, including the restoration of the Cooper's Monument. Just 4 services would be held on average each day, outside of peak traffic, but we will still provide a right-hand turning lane and a pedestrian crossing, and highway officers do agree that our proposals are acceptable. There'll also be significant travel savings across the area, so no need to drive to Chelmsford or beyond. We therefore hope you endorse a strong recommendation of your officers and vote in favour of our plans tonight to improve facilities.
Sorry.
Perfect.
Well done, thank you.
Thank you.
I think you've pretty much made it. Okay, members, you've heard the recommendation is to approve, but I'm not going to put that yet, so someone care to begin a discussion and we'll see if a proposal comes out of that. Right, so I have Councillor White followed by Councillor Fleming.
Thank you, Chairman. I mean, I have to say, I suppose we've all got a interest in this because we're all getting older, but I think this is a really good idea. It's well needed. I think we do need it in the district. Wherever you put it, there's going to be some residents who don't want it, but I actually think we need this. It looks a really nice, sympathetic design. I really like the design of it. So I'd like to propose that we approve the application as a recommendation.
Do I have a seconder for that? All right. Okay, Councillor Key seconds. Who did I have next? Sorry, Councillor Fleming.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to ask, Michael, can you just clarify, it's not a crossing, it's a pedestrian island, is that correct?
Thank you, Chairman. That is correct. It's a pedestrian island. So they'll cross from one side into the middle, obviously wait for the free flow of traffic to pass, and then they will cross over. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay. Councillor Fleming.
Thank you, Chair. If I can just come back. I like the design of the building, and I agree there's a need for this in the district. I have experience of this. My father died during COVID, and I remember being told that there was a 6-week wait for him to be cremated. So we actually, and then the funeral director said, well, how about there's a new crematorium that's been built, a private crematorium, why don't you try them? And they were able to fit us in. And I have to say the whole experience was so well done. It was a beautiful setting. So for the residents of Maldon, I think this would be, I'd love them to have this access to this service, but I am concerned about the road and the access into the site, because I drive that road every day. I drove here on that road today. It's 50 miles an hour. I think pedestrian island, I'm looking to you, Mr. Johnson. I know Essex Highways have said that it's all fine and it, you know, fits the specifications, but I am concerned about the speed of that road. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. I can't speak authoritatively about highway matters in that particular respect. The speed of the existing highway was a matter that was raised in the consultation process. My response to that, as within the report, is that the Highway Authority, I know it sounds like a fallback response, but it is a response. The Highway Authority have not raised an issue in terms of the speed of the traffic. They feel that the measures in place, what's been proposed, particularly how the pedestrian refuge within the road has been designed to, as they do, protect persons crossing the road, is satisfactory for that road. The highway safety audits had been carried out, they've been checked, and they're considered to be satisfactory. So on that basis, I have no reason to doubt the final assessment of the Highway Authority in that respect. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Keys, then Councillor Morgan, please. Councillor Keys.
All right, thank you, Madam Chairman. I know the place is Sugar Beet Hill, but that's for me. It says here 5.2.1. Now at work, they call me the professional mourner. I was at Colchester Crematorium last week and Chelmsford Crematorium the week before. It says the proposed development include a provision for a large car park area. How many spaces? Yes, I'm a great fan of trees and shrubs, but can we have more spacing? Because people just park everywhere. There is certainly not enough space at Chelmsford. There's certainly not enough space at Colchester. Now, putting in shrubs and plants takes up valuable car parking spaces. I don't want to see the whole thing covered in black tarmac or concrete, but they never seem to be looked after that well, like most industrial estates and retail parks. The poor things sit there gasping for water in the middle of the summer, covered in litter. I know this is not going to be with the litter situation, but people just walk through the hedges, knock them down, park on them, park in them. Is there anything we could do to make the provision and stipulate how many spaces we can have? And also, would there be electric charging points in the said crematorium for somebody that has got quite a lot of money to afford to buy an electric car to park there?
We can only look at the application that
I know,
we have in
but
front of us.
I'd see that, but
actually,
it's the car, because it's got in here, it's got synthetic material with proposed use of rural setting, preserve the best possible slim amount of landscaping. Can we put a condition? I don't know, but I think everybody in here knows there is not enough room to park at a crematorium. And a lovely hedge looks wonderful, but it's not practical.
Mr. Johnson.
Thank you, Chairman. I can only really respond on the details in the application. The standard assessment for a crematorium of this size in terms of parking provision would be 60 spaces. This application is proposing 84 spaces. So there is a qualitative improvement over what's the standard assessment set out within 2 parking spaces. As the Chair said, we have to deal with the application that's in front of us, and because there is this over provision, probably partly because of reasons that you've stated, it's considered acceptable in this particular sense. Who knows about the future? But if this application were supported at this stage, if there may be a need for more parking spaces, it can be justified, and there isn't the harm. Basically, the arguments that have been made here, that may be for another consideration. But in terms of what's here, we're actually satisfied that there is this particular over provision over the standards, and that's to be welcomed. Thank you, Chairman.
Can I come back? How many seating spaces is there inside? Do we know? Because I can't find that on there.
It must be in here somewhere.
I've had a
It
look.
escapes me for
Is
the moment.
it 2 people per car, or it's, you know?
It's yeah. The calculations are based on two persons,
people per
but this is
car.
2 persons per car based off these.
There's
60
80 spaces.
Based off the 60.
That's 120.
Yes, and 84 spaces are being provided.
48, 16, 116. Right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Cheers, Michael and Mr. Johnson.
Councillor Morgan.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Although I'm very sympathetic to this proposal, but I feel I have to sort of represent the interests of the local parish council from Woodham, Mortimer, who echoed Councillor Fleming's concerns about the A414 and the fact that this is likely to put increasing pressure on what is already a very busy road. And wonder whether that, since this provision is primarily to relieve a pressure on areas such as in the Dengie, where such facilities simply don't exist at all, as whether any consideration was given to another site, perhaps in that particular area, for this facility to be placed.
Again, we can only look at the application we have in front of us. If Mr. Johnson, Councillor, I do apologise. I do apologise. It doesn't get worse than that.
Maybe my
Mr. Johnson, Mr. Johnson, please feel free to comment if you'd like to.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Morgan, I mean, there is really very little I can say in response to that. I'm aware fully of the Parish Council's comments, and you would have noted officer response in respect of that. The applicant had said, not just here as you heard earlier, but also within their submission, that alternative locations had been considered, scoped out, assessed in terms of, you know, their appropriateness. Obviously, there's a whole range of matters they have to consider, and it is in their view that this is the ideal location. This also in terms of the site circumstances is a matter of considerations, and also things of access. And now, while I take the point about driving along A414, I drive along it myself, so I do appreciate that, but. This is considered to be the most appropriate location to fit the applicant's requirements. It's satisfactory in planning sense, but also our consultees in terms of highways, etc. Thank you, Chairman.
Thanks so much.
Anybody else? Oh, sorry, Councillor Morley.
Yeah, thank you. You say other areas were considered. I mean, it looks to me that field a bit further nearer Danbury direction, but it's a slight, straighter road. You can't see it on there. To the left of the plan there. Would that not have been better with, because you've got the access there on a bend and everything. I'm surprised that that's been accepted, really. Were other sites, I know we got to do what's in front of us, I know, but it just seems crazy that it's right on that bend there. Thank you.
Please do, Mr.
Thank you, Chairman. I understand the point. When you look at the plan and what you can see, there does appear to be a curvature in the road, but part of the highway consideration is the sight lines, and the extent of visibility above the footway and the length of views afforded to make sight lines acceptable in their context. Is one of the things that highways consider in terms of their highway safety and their highway audit. There's extensive views from the access either way, up to 133 meters of clear views. That is considered satisfactory. It's not a steep bend, it's very gentle. I have to say, I personally know that bit of the road myself, it more than satisfied the appropriate views to ensure satisfactory ingress and egress.
Could you just go back and show me exactly where the access is in relation to the church, please? Is it right opposite the church? I couldn't really see from the plan.
I think up there you can see that's the church.
Okay, Councillor Fleming.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, Michael, going back to the access and installing that right-hand turn, are they sort of planning that they will take a bit of, as you know that road, you'll know where I mean, as you sort of go along the straight bit and you come to the Councillor Morley's right, it is a bend. And on the left, there's the church, but there's a sort of bit that you can pull off in front of the church. Are they intending to sort of make that part of the highway? It's under highways land ownership, I would think, because knowing the road, I'm just concerned about how it all fits in, and you can see the highway's boundary there. Is that going to be incorporated into the highway? Do you know?
I
What if it
don't know
doesn't say so?
myself.
No?
In terms of the access, obviously the relocation of the bus stop is very much a part of, to facilitate the ease of movement, to ensure that the right hand turn also facilitates the overtaking on the easterly direction. That's about the limit I can say. The boundaries of the site are just set within the plan as you can see it there. I can't comment any further than that. Thank you, Chairman.
It's outside the control of the applicant, so we couldn't do anything about it anyway. Councillor Siddle.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Yeah, if you look on slide or page 16 of the slides, it actually shows that layout. And I think what they're doing, from what I can interpret, I think I've got a different slide number. It's page 16. I think it's one before that, Devon. Maybe that. I don't know which one it is now.
Sorry.
That one, I think. Yeah, it's that one with the bus on it. It looks like they're taking land from the left. Yeah. So they're not encroaching on the other side. They're taking the land from the left, which is
where the church car park is?
Yeah, where you pull in.
Where the house was the big one.
yeah. So
Thank you, Councillor.
okay.
Right, I'm going to put this to the vote now, I think. I think it's about time we did. Everyone's had their say. So we have the proposal to accept the recommendation as given in the officer's report. That's proposed by Councillor White, seconded by Councillor Keyes. Those in favour, please. Those against? Right, so one Councillor Morley against, Councillor Fleming, is that abstaining? Right. So that is in fact passed in line with the officer recommendation. So thank you very much, everyone. And we will move on now to item 6 and Councillor...
Madam Chairman, I'll just go and fetch Councillor
Yes,
Durham.
Councillor Durham. I get the impression Councillor Durham is listening and you can come back now. No, we know. You're welcome. Right, so item 6 is the golf driving range, Burnham Road, Woodham, Mortimer. That's on pages 37 to 96. Now, this is a little unusual in that it's a continuation of that was heard in a previous meeting in October, which means that only those members who were present that time can vote, which reduces our number to myself, Thompson, Councillor Keyes, Councillor Durham, Councillor Morgan, Councillor Morley and Councillor White. Councillor Stevens was among that number but is unfortunately not able to be here. So I'm sorry, Councillor Siddle, Councillor Fleming, you can't take part. So the presentation is from Mrs. Herner, and we have Mr. Anthony O'Toole, the agent, to speak following that. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. So this is an outline application with all matters reserved for up to 18 units. And the proposal also includes the demolition of the existing building on site and the removal of the driving range and pitch and putt use. This application was previously presented to members in October, but case law and the Town and Country Planning Act require that if any new material considerations come about prior to the issuing of the decision notice, then the decision maker must have regard to this consideration. 2 new appeal decisions have since been received that are material considerations in the determination of this planning application. I'll try and give a brief recap of the application. So this is the location plan with the site outlined in red, extending an area of 3.4 hectares. This is the indicative layout. So insofar as is relevant to the new material consideration being presented tonight, it's relevant to note that there is a footpath along the western boundary of the site to Conduit Lane, which provides access to the relevant bus stops. However, as we previously presented, officers' review is unlikely to be used due to it being unlit and involves walking within a road, which would deter users during dark times and times of inclement weather. Just to recap that the bus service is considered limited, and there's also no shelter for westbound services on the A414 bus stop. This is just recapping on the tree constraints plan. The relevant site history. So there was 2 previous applications at the site for 25 units, which in part were refused due to the unsustainable location of the development. Another application was dismissed for 8 dwellings. At the time of the 2021 application, the council couldn't demonstrate a 5-year housing land supply, which is the same situation as this application. And it was also previously considered that 25 units would not offset the harm as a result of, and in part, the inappropriate and unsustainable location of the site. This scheme proposes lesser units, and therefore the benefits are considered lesser. So here we have the 2017 layout, the 2020 layout, the 2021 layout, and then some photos of the access in and around the site. Photos looking out from the access, within the driving range itself, and the pitch and putt. So members had previously resolved to approve the application, stating that a reason for approval that included that the site was a sustainable location, it was previously developed land, and there would be a net biodiversity gain. A decision has not yet been issued on the application, as the Section 106 had not been signed until last week. On the 19th and 20th of January, 2 appeal decisions were received, one relating to previous development land in Southminster, and one to the sustainability of Woodham Mortimer as a village for 1 dwelling. Section 70 of the Town and Country Planning Act requires a planning authority to have regard to all material considerations. Case law is clear that any new information that comes in between an area planning committee coming to a resolution and a decision notice being issued should be fully considered. It also states that where the delegated officer becomes aware of a new material consideration, the delegated officer must refer the matter back to the committee for reconsideration in light of the new consideration. If they fail to do so, the planning authority will be in breach of its statutory duty. So in terms of how the appeals relate to this application, the Southminster appeal decision confirms that the use of previously developed land is in line with the National Planning Policy Framework. In respect of the Woodham Mortimer decision, which relates to 1 dwelling, the inspector noted that the appeal proposal would not be sustainably located. They stated that Woodham Mortimer as a village, and regardless of the settlement boundaries, is one of the least sustainable locations to deliver housing to meet local needs in the district. The bus service was found not to provide an attractive alternative mode of transport. There was no shelter on the western bound services on the A414 bus stop, no lighting along the A414 to access the bus stop, and no continuous safe footway via Conduit Lane into the main village and its facilities. The inspector found that the services of the village were limited, there was a lack of footways, and the nature of the bus infrastructure that the occupiers of the 1 dwelling would have available to them. The occupiers of the dwelling would be heavily reliant on the car, which would be contrary to achieving sustainable development and a low carbon future. These points are applicable to this appeal scheme, and the harm is amplified by the fact that the application is for 18 dwellings rather than just the 1. Therefore, there'll be a far greater impact as a result of the use of private cars. The inspector afforded the harm arising from the conflicts with policies S1 and S8 significant weight, despite them being out to date and the presumption in favour of sustainable development. In respect of how this impacts a previous resolution, officers previously advised that they consider the site to be unsuitably located and unsustainable. and it is believed that the appeal decision further supports this. Case law and the Town and Country Planning Act require members as the decision makers in this scenario to take this new material consideration into account when considering the application. There have been no new material considerations in respect of the other reasons for refusal presented by officers previously, and therefore no further comment is made in respect of those. And if members are still minded to approve the application, then conditions have been suggested on the updated report. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. I'm going to ask Mr. O'Toole to come forward in a moment. There's just a couple of items of clarification. The decision notice could not be released until the Section 106 was signed. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And the Section 106 was not held up by the local planning authority. That is down to other matters over which we had no control.
That's correct, yes.
Thank you very much. Right, Mr. O'Toole, please. I'm sure you know the drill, Mr. O'Toole. Please make yourself comfortable. Please do use the microphone. You get 2 minutes precisely from when you start to speak, so make yourself comfortable.
Good evening. This committee voted to approve the application in October, and the Section 106 has now been signed with covenants to provide for 8 affordable housing units, finance for the NHS, public open space, and a RAMS contribution. Now, we appreciate there have been a couple of appeal decisions concluded during these intervening months and understand that the planner has an obligation to bring these to your attention. No recommendation is attached to today's report. It is purely for information purposes only. We believe that these cases bear little relevance to the application site before you for the following reasons. Each application needs to be assessed on its own merits. The Bryant's Lane appeal is nowhere near the development boundary and is separated by the A414 and open fields. Also, this was for a single dwelling with no community benefits. This is in stark contrast to the application site, which is surrounded to 3 sides by the development boundary, provides much needed housing for the borough, and is within easy access to transport links. Crucially, the planning inspector for that appeal determined that Woodham Mortimer was not one of the most sustainable villages in the borough. This does not mean that the village is unsustainable and does not undermine the committee's previous decision. The appeal in Southminster was one which was initially refused by the local authority and subsequently overturned. The key takeaway from this decision was that redeveloping previously developed land should be promoted. The council have acknowledged that the application site is also considered previously developed land. This appeal only serves to support this application and highlight how it should be approved. Fundamentally, nothing has changed since October to make this application site any more or any less sustainable. We therefore ask the committee to stand by their previous determination. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, members, I have Councillor Durham first, Councillor Keith, and Councillor Morgan. So, Councillor Durham.
Oh, thank you, Chairman. Chairman, I really don't think we're going to achieve much by re-debating it because it was debated at huge length in October when we reached our decision. And I'm certainly not going to be throwing brickbats about, but I think that the law has quite clearly been followed in this case because of the unfortunate delay in signing the Section 106, and that is obviously a complicating factor. And then these 2 appeal decisions came in. But I think we need to understand the difference between the appeal site in Woodham Mortimer and this site. And Woodham Mortimer is, it's almost 2 complete villages, or the Bryant's Lane is not actually connected with the main part of the village. In fact, it's got the A414 cuts through it, and I would say that particular part, the Bryant's Lane side of Woodham Mortimer, that's not sustainable by any stretch of the imagination. But that isn't the same for this side of Woodham Mortimer, because it has got a pedestrian access to buses. It has got, I mean, you within less than a 5-minute walk, you've got a pub and restaurant. So you're not comparing apples with apples, I'm afraid, in this. And so I do accept the reasons why it's come back. I stand by the reasons which were very heavily debated, actually argued in October, but I stand by those. I think we're back here because of a technicality, and I will therefore make a proposal that we stick with our original reasons for approval, and we acknowledge the fact that officers have quite rightly brought this back to be reconsidered, but at the end of the day, the fundamental reasons why it was approved against officers' recommendations in October still stand. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Keyes seconded, and that was the first hand to go up. Did you? Right, Councillor Keyes to speak, then I've got Councillor White and Councillor Maldon.
I've got two things, please, Chairman. Has there been a cost to the applicant? Obviously, he's had to come here tonight. Has he had to set anything in? No, apart from his own time.
This is what we have to do.
Right.
This is the law.
I heard Hannah, Mrs. Devon, say the bus stop had got no lighting down the road, this one. I take it the new bus stop that's going to be put in opposite the crematorium will have lighting, will it? Which is no more than half, 3/4 of a mile down the road? Yes? No?
It's not a material consideration in this application, and these are the closest bus stops to the application site, so they're the ones that would be most reasonably used.
Councillor Morgan. Oh no, sorry, I think I have Councillor White next. Sorry.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I mean, mine really is that every application has to be determined on its merits. And Bryant's Lane is a tiny lane, and it is on the opposite side of the A414. But that was for one house, which obviously has limited benefit. Whereas this was an application which had, was it 10 affordable housing units? And for me, eight, sorry, yep. But for me, the benefits of the affordable housing for the district outweighs any harm, and I think that also that helps with the sustainability because it's all on balance. And for me, the tilted balance is still in favour of approval as we did at the last North West Committee.
Thank you, Councillor Morgan.
I'd be able to just follow up both the councillors Durham, White and Keyes have said. I mean, I thought this had been disposed of in October. It looks some ghastly manifestation of the undead. It's come back to haunt us again. And can we then please put a stake through its heart once and for all tonight?
Okay. Right, well, we have a proposal duly seconded. Sorry, Mr. Johnson, did you want to come back with something?
Yeah, so I just wanted to make a comment. Obviously, as you know, Councillor Durham says, we are following procedure, and the steps has just sort of fallen into place that is triggered this happening, and it does give officers, the opportunity again to restate the position as how the policies and the plan states, particularly around sustainability, but also that. Where decisions, and I'm not saying there's a right or wrong in this, so please don't misinterpret it. Where there's a decision that goes against or runs contrary to officers' recommendation, that is a decision that then obviously may in itself become a precedent for any other developments. Yeah, these are arguments that we do tend to make in terms of the location of this site and its access to facilities, but it also may interpret how we then look at applications that may come forward, because if we then have applications that say particular areas are sustainable, in a sense we're almost partly also bound by our own decisions, having regard to proximity and that sort of thing. So these are just some of the things that we want members to have in their mind when the subsequent applications have come forward. I think this is something I've also said before in others, as a sort of wider context to why we feel it's important to just make these points to committee and for committee to be aware of that. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Durham, but I think...
Well, just before we go to the vote, I totally understand what Mr Johnson has said, because he used the same argument in October. But I do, and he's quite right to have put that fact to us, but I do think that we made a well-balanced decision that was thoroughly debated, and we gave our reasons why members didn't agree with the officer's recommendation at the time, and those still stand. So I'm happy to vote now, Chairman.
Yeah, thank you. I'm most grateful, Councillor. Most grateful. Okay, so we do have the proposal that we repeat the same decision to approve on the reasons for approval. Now is the moment to raise any issues you may have with the conditions which were delegated to officers, but they've been brought back in this report to simplify things and to speed things up, because we are ready to go with a decision notice. So, is everybody happy? You're happy with the conditions? Thank you very much. So, those in favour of approval in line with everything in the officer's report? Okay, those against? Right, that is in fact approved. Thank you, Mr. Jones. We can move on. And the next one, item 7 on our agenda, is Harmony Kennels, Brook House, Spar Lane, Purleigh. That's on pages 97 to 112. It'll be presented by Mr. Johnson, and after that, Mr. Lawrence, the applicant, please. Thank you, Mr. Johnson.
Thank you, Chairman. This application proposes a single-storey dwelling and cart lodge, replacing existing outbuildings. So we just run through the slides. We can see the location plan and the site there. You can see where it says Harmony Kennels. That little area sort of carved out there. Those rectangular lines, you can see those are the outbuildings, of which we'll see some photographs later. And here is the proposed site layout. We can see the building laid out sort of, well, not quite centrally, but almost centrally within the sort of rectangular area there. You can see the outlines of the outbuildings which are to be removed, and obviously access over to the west. If you just run through the various plans, the floor plan, roof plan, we can see the single-storey building there, the cart lodge facing, pretty standard sort of design. And again, the various other elevations. And there's just some photographs of the outbuildings. Okay, just providing some context. Thank you. I think if we just go back to the to keep on the screen just the overall site plan. Yeah, we can just sort of have that. This application follows on from a previous application which was refused by the authority and subsequently dismissed on appeal. These are set out within section 3 of your report there. We can see at 3.1 for a subsequent appeal for the previous application was dismissed for the following reasons. The appeal site would not be suitable for the development proposed. It would therefore fail to comply with various policies which, taken together, establish the strategic growth requirements and settlement hierarchy for the district. Due to the scale and overall bulk of the proposed building, it's concluded that the proposal would harm the character and appearance of the surrounding environment, contrary to policies. One of the fundamental reasons there is the unsustainable location of the development, which is a continuous theme from the from officers' refusal and the inspectors' subsequent dismissal of the appeal. In that respect, although the application has responded to the elements of size and scale by reducing the overall footprint and height and dimension of the building, the issues of its sustainability still remains. A number of the other reasons for refusals have been addressed, particularly in terms of the Section 106 payment through RAMs and also ecology matters. So those matters have fallen away. They have been addressed by this application. But if we just go to the conclusion at 3.2.1, despite a reduction in the scale and bulk of the dwelling, the proposed development would still result in the domestication of the countryside to the detriment of the character and appearance of the area. In addition, it is considered the site is in an unsustainable location outside of a defined settlement boundary. Therefore, the proposal is contrary to policy S1, 8, H4 and D1 of the plan. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Lawrence, please come forward. Pick any chair you like. Somebody next to you will help you with the microphone. As you've heard me say, it's 2 minutes precisely from when you begin, so make sure you're comfortable and we'll start the clock when you start. Thank you.
Good evening, Madam Chairman. Good evening, members. Our site is without doubt sustainable with village shop, school, nursery, church and pub, all reachable using the footpath from the top of Spar Lane into the centre of the village. Spar Lane is a no-through road with only 4 properties and very little traffic. The bus stops and footpath are only 130 metres from the site. A regular bus service to Maldon, Southminster, Bradwell and the villages between is available with stops at the top of Spar Lane with 18 services daily. Maldon is only around 3 miles away by car for essential journeys, and the property will have a charging point to facilitate the use of an electric vehicle plus electric air source heating. The National Planning Policy Framework clearly states there should be presumption in favour of development on sustainable previously developed brownfield sites outside the settlement boundary, more so if the LPA does not have a 5-year land supply. MDC only has a 3-year supply. The site is clearly in this category. There will be no additional visual impact as the proposed sits on the footprint of the ugly old kennel block it replaces. It is only 700mm higher and will be built in materials traditional to the area and farmer in keeping. With the removal of the other derelict kennels, visual impact will be further reduced, albeit the site is hardly visible as there are well-managed tall hedges and trees on the boundaries. MDC acknowledges they have a shortage of 1 and 2 bedroom bungalows. Every single one built helps this situation. I've always lived in the country and would hate to live in a suburban or urban environment. I was born in Purleigh, went to school in Purleigh, want to die in Purleigh and be buried in the churchyard with my mother and brother. I have ongoing medical issues which will only get worse. I'm now registered disabled with a genuine need for this bungalow.
I'm sorry, I do have to stop you there. I understand, well done. Right, sorry, Councillor Morley, was that your paw going up? Oh, okay, right, in that case I've got Councillor White, Councillor Fleming.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I mean, I actually have got the appeal up, and the house that was refused was absolutely massive. It was 7.38 metres high, and this is 4-point-something metres high. It was a massive house before. This looks much more suitable. But going through the appeal, reason 8, it was talking about sustainability, and it says accordingly as a consequence of this relationship. And that was between the approved dwellings and the visual and physical relationship. They said it was too bulky. And the inspector says he does notice its proximity to facilities and bus service under reason 9. It goes under, 3 large, albeit low-rise buildings with a utilitarian appearance. And it says that it goes on to say the existing buildings are not prominent within the public realm and their scale and appearance generally ensure that the buildings have a discrete presence. As a consequence, in my judgment, the existing buildings are unassuming and subservient to existing established development as well as the open countryside. And it says, it goes on 12, the proposal would seek to replace the buildings with a large dwelling. The replacement building would be 2 stories in height with a pitched roof above. Although the footprint would be more contained than the buildings it would replace, it would be a generous footprint, blah, 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 blah. But it says the bulk mass of the building would create a large and imposing structure that would be distinctly at odds with the unassuming presence of the existing buildings. It goes on to say about, the height and the bulk and the height and the bulk and the scale and the bulk. And it is because the scale and the bulk under 14 that he doesn't think it accords with policies S1, S8, D1 and H4, which taken together, sustainable development which respects and enhances the character and local context. Well, I think for me, if we get the pictures up of what's proposed, and I don't know if you've got the drawings of what was refused. Do you have the drawings there? It was huge. And it seems to me that the appeal, honestly, it was massive. But the appeal was quite clear that the reason he didn't find it sustainable, or all the other reasons, was because the building was so high. And in fact, on this site, we had there's two other houses that got planning permission at appeal. And I actually voted against them. They came to North West Committee because I didn't like the access, because it was on the bend just past the pub. I didn't like the access at all. I didn't think it was safe. But the planning inspector said otherwise. And for me, the fact that he's done everything the planning inspector said he should, I propose that we approve this recommendation. I don't know if I'll get a seconder for that, but that's my thoughts on it.
I'll second that.
Okay. Thank you. So, okay, and reason, hang on, I've got to go back to the...
For me, the reasons are because of the reduced bulk size, mass and design following in comparison to the appeal site, that because of this, it does accord with policies S1, S8, D1 and H4, because taken together, they seek, amongst other things, sustainable development which respects and enhances the character and local context. And I think that with the change in the design, that it does do all of those things. So I think for those reasons, we can approve this application.
Okay, those are the reasons. Thank you, Councillor Keyes. I've, lost the plot ever so slightly. Sorry, Councillor Morgan, I think it was Councillor Fleming next, but I will promise faithfully I will come to you. Councillor Fleming.
Thank you, Chair. This road, it used to be rural. It's not anymore, though. It's actually, it's in the 30-mile-an-hour limit. So, with respect, I think it is a sustainable location. It's changed that road in the last 15, 20 years. Okay. It's a sort of long ribbon development, and you can at Spar Lane, you walk up there is actually a bus stop there, and there's a footpath, relatively unusual features in the countryside. There's a shop in Purleigh, there's a primary school, there's a pub, there's a village hall. So I'm afraid I disagree with the officer's recommendation. Also, Michael, can I just ask, you talk about the two, this was previously refused on appeal, different design, different size. Then you talk about the two other dwellings which are in the applicant's ownership. What was the sort of chronology of that? Which one was first, if you can answer that? The two were first and then this one?
Yes, that's the case, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Morgan.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Deborah, can we look at the site photos and go on to the end? Keep going down. Right. I'm just interested in reasons for refusal. It says the proposed development would fail to enhance the character and appearance of the rural area, and the built form would have an urbanising effect of an unwelcome and visual intrusion into the undeveloped countryside. Well, I mean, frankly, we've got that already, haven't we? I mean, I fail to see that that's a valid reason for seeking to refuse this, Madam Chairman. And so I would support Councillor White in the proposal that we approve this application. Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Johnson actually wants to come in, but I'm going to say we've all seen sites that have been allowed to get more and more untidy and wrecked and hideous, and then we are presented with clearing that up as a reason for a new dwelling. And
I appreciate that, Madam Chairman, but let's be honest.
I hear what you're saying, but
probably asbestos there, I think, as well.
Mr. Johnson.
Thank you, Chairman. That's very much the point I was going to make.
Yeah.
That's clearly no justification. That is a site that has become unkempt over the passage of time. It's still a site which is clearly in a state of flux. At some point in the future, it would not remain like that, even if it's not developed in the way that's proposed here. So really, it's just the sort of the officer's counter to the argument that's actually put forward. I mean, once the built form is on that site, it then becomes a permanent feature. It would be a residential site, and it would more than likely be there in perpetuity. So that's the point there in terms of the domestication of the site, etc. And the domestication of the site in the rural area should not be, and I'm not saying you are, Councillor, confused with a land which is left to become untidy and visually unattractive. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay. Right.
You were expecting me to say something.
I was expecting. Well, we all were. Well, please do. But normally everyone feels the need to have a go, and far be it from me to restrict debate. But there is actually no need for everyone to agree with everyone else. However, Councillor Siddle, go for it.
Thank you, Madam Chair. If I can understand everything the officer is saying, and I can understand everything in terms of the fact that this is a rural location. However, if it was the next field where there was nothing on it, and this is at the end of Spar Lane. I used to have friends who lived on Spar Lane, just over on the other side of it. So because of what's there already, I think we've already urbanised this particular part of the countryside. I know these buildings are dilapidated. However, they are buildings. They look like someone could have lived in them at one point. So on this particular occasion, I am going to agree with my fellow members.
Councillor Morley.
And also, we are all getting older, we do need bungalows and things like that. So I think it's a great idea. Thank you.
Right, I think then we can take this to the vote. So those in... No. No, I don't think you meant that. Right, we do have a proposal to... We have a proposal to overturn to approve in the name of Councillor White, seconded by Councillor Keys, as I recall. Mr Jones, did you get those reasons for approval? Right, condition, oh yes, thank you. Conditions we need to delegate to the officers, I think.
But yeah, usually, yeah.
Unless you've got something you want to add, then... yeah, I can't think of a reason why the standard ones wouldn't, so that's the conditions delegated. So, okay, those in favour of approval, thank you. Those against? I'm abstaining. Okay, thank you. Right, moving on. We...
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman. Thank you, members.
No Morris yet. No formal Councillor Morris. And I wore the spotty shirt especially. Wouldn't count. But we haven't actually finished the meeting, members, and Councillor Durham has returned complete with his pen. Right, we're moving on to item 8, which is not a planning application. It is to confirm or not a tree preservation order at Millhouse, Maldon Road, Langford. So there's no public speakers because, well, A, there's no one here, but B, it's not a planning application, so it doesn't apply. We have a presentation by Mrs. Herner, and there we go.
Thank you. This report relates to a confirmation of a tree preservation order for 6 black alder trees and 1 weeping willow located to the rear of Millhouse, Maldon Road in Langford. The weeping willow is located within the circled outline stated T1, and the black alder trees are in the dashed circle labelled G1 here and here. This is an aerial view with a red light outline showing the location of the trees. Here we have the location plan with the trees highlighted. This is a photo of the trees which highlights the weeping willow from Woodham Road. And the photos of the alder trees from within Woodham Road. Photos of the from within Millhouse car park showing the trees from this location. And a photo from St Giles Church car park. The council received an application under reference 2200982 TCA to fell these trees and to replace them with 6 black alder trees and 1 weeping willow in September of 2022. However, due to the replacement trees not being enforceable under the terms of Section 211 of the Town and Country Planning Act and the trees having amenity value, the council's tree consultant objected to the works for this reason. A tempo assessment was carried out and it was scored 18 out of 25, which is a score that says definitely warrants a tree preservation order. So a tree preservation order was then served on the 24th of October, with an objection letter later being received in relation to the TPO. The objection relates to the fact that the council stated that the TPO served on the basis they cannot secure a replacement, which the objector believes isn't a reason for serving a TPO, as the trees fail the condition and amenity test. They also state that there is an intent to replace the trees and this should be taken on trust and not by the inappropriate use of serving an order. The question of whether or not to confirm the TPO has been brought before members. However, it's the officer's recommendation based on the tempo which recognise the amenity of the trees for their size and location and based on the threat to the trees that the TPO should be confirmed. The tempo guidance acknowledges that a reason for serving a TPO can be precautionary only. However, the threat to the tree goes beyond this, as the tempo was triggered due to the request to fell the trees, and as such, a threat was imminent. The tempo score was 18, which, as I've said, falls within the definitely merit a TPO's category. Thank you.
Thank you. Members. Councillor White.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, I do know that the tempo system can be manipulated, and I know that because we had trees that the author of the tempo system said did not merit a TPO, but Maldon District Council saw otherwise. So the person who actually devised the system came to a different decision to Maldon District Council. Now, they say they're doing damage to the house, and that is a reason for something to score a really low tempo score. Have we seen the report of the damage to the house that they're causing? Because obviously they can cause a lot of heave. So do we know if there is damage? Because I think we need to be sure of this. And if we don't have the information on damage, but the applicant is saying there is, I'd be mindful to defer it until we actually see if there is damage. And then I think that for me would affect any decision as to whether the trees should stay or go, or should have a TPO or not, because I'm not sure there's enough information present, unless I just haven't seen the homeowner or the building owner's report.
Mr. Johnson, is that one for you? I would have thought if they put forward an objection, that would be the time to put forward some evidence of damage. Councillor Keys, let's listen to you while we have a look and
Thank
see
you,
what
Madam
we've
Chairman. I'm involved in a tree preservation order that got lifted. This has got structural damage to the house, and the insurance company done DNA testing on the roots and said that it was due to the tree. Maldon Council said they couldn't fight the insurance company, so they lifted the TPO on an English oak. Now, has any of this been submitted, similar to what Councillor White said about structural damage? Have we had anything? And perhaps we should see it, but they DNA'd the roots. How they've done that, I have no idea, but Maldon Council said that they've got to lift the TPO because the tree's got to go down. Luckily for the tree, it's still there at present, but that's out of my hands now. But the TPO was lifted by Maldon Council, and it never even come to committee, they just lifted it.
Right, but we're talking about this case and evidence of damage to the building and nothing, anything?
Reports, insurance reports.
I'm not the case officer of the application, but I have just looked at the TC application that was submitted, which has triggered the TPO, and I can't see anything was submitted as part of that. The reasoning within that report as why the felling of the trees was required is because they were leaning 30 to 90 degrees to the north, and the black alder trees are in a spindly and in poor condition, mainly caused by swamping from a collection of leylandii trees, which has caused them to grow towards the sunlight.
No structural evidence.
Not that I can see, but I'd hate to say definitively it's not the case officer.
Sorry, what page are you on? Mr. Johnson has a page.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, really, just to underline that point there, 7.11 of the report says one letter of from Sharon Hosegood Associates was received on behalf of the owner, objecting to the serving of the TPO. Where, you know, I'm familiar with Sharon Hosegood, you know, submits arboricultural reports, you know, an established arboriculturalist company. The objection makes no reference to impact on dwellings.
Excellent, thank you. And to be fair, it isn't forever. If the evidence of structural damage comes forward, they can apply to have the trees taken down.
Exactly, and I think the point that Mrs. Herner was making was that it secures the replacement. You know, I mean, I do appreciate the applicant talking about goodwill, but you know, when we're talking about you know, land use issues, natural environment, we can't just go on goodwill. It has to be enshrined within decisions and policies and legislation, etc., to secure the, you know, the future natural environment and amenity of the area.
Councillor
Thank you,
Durham.
Chairman.
Could we just have the site plan up again, just to show us the location of the? Okay, right. Oh, well, actually, that aerial photograph was quite
That was
useful.
good. Yep.
Yeah.
That's useful.
Look, there's no way that the roots from those trees are going to be encroaching on the foundation. Okay, they may suck a bit of moisture out, but I think, you know, what are we trying to achieve? What we're trying to achieve by this TPO is to ensure that trees that are removed are replaced.
Pretty much.
That's it, really? Because I think there was a photograph, and one that was sent to members, of a tree that was at that sort of angle, and that's going to fall sooner or later. That hasn't got a great deal of life left in it. And could we have a look at the other photograph that showed us the trees? Right. Okay. Oh no. But yeah, that one there. So the taller trees are the alders that are referred to. Is that right? Yes. And that is in the summer, by the look of it. And it's spring. They don't look terribly great, do they? I don't know. It's difficult to see from here. But, yeah, they look a bit better there. Do we know if the Leylandi have been removed? Because they are the scourge of the
This
world.
was a recent site visit undertaken by the case officer, so they're the trees that were in position at that time.
When you say if that's recent, so they are, then they've got to be Leylandi because they're still green. I'm guessing.
No, all the trees are green.
Alder is, yeah.
If I might come in, that's not now, because the deciduous trees have got leaves on. They haven't got any leaves on now. There's no way that's now.
Hanging baskets, look. And the sun is very high.
Anyway, look, okay, so really what we are saying, correct me if I'm wrong, Chairman, is that we want to ensure that any trees that are removed are replaced rather than leaving it as a matter of goodwill. Is that correct, Mr. Johnson?
Thank you, Chairman. That is correct in one point, but I sort of said that there is actually two reasons, because the trees, in terms of their amenity value of themselves, irrespective of the replacement, were scored highly on the tempo, as Miss Herner says. So there's two reasons for that. But also, secondly, if they should be removed for reasons that may well happen, then that there would be replacement.
And they're in a conservation area. Otherwise, it wouldn't have arisen.
Can we go back to the aerial photograph again? Because I just want to try and get my bearings right. So you've got the church, so there, and the field at the back on Woodham Road. Okay, which is a private garden, isn't it? Out at the back, at the top of that photograph. Is Ted what? Yeah, was Ted's. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. There's a brick house up there. Yeah.
Oh, they're up further.
Okay. Thank you, Chairman. I've sort of got. Okay. Thank you.
Councillor Morgan.
Yeah, thank you, Manager. Just as an aside, I once asked a garden expert how close to a building it's safe to plant a weeping willow, and he got the reply 20 miles. So I would say just where it is isn't necessarily sort of certain it's not going to cause trouble. I was just wondering, the letter from Sharon Hosegood, unless I've missed something, was that actually sent to members beforehand?
It was sent to members, but
It was sent to members. It was
it was sent to you. Did you not feel it worth sort of circulating it to members as part of the papers, or not?
the applicant sent it to us.
No, the applicant. It wasn't part of the papers.
Well, I mean, yes, the applicant has indeed sent it, but just going through it, I noticed that all the trees, according to the applicant, are of a tempo score that don't merit actually having a TPO. And so I just wonder exactly why it is we're seeking to impose them.
Sadly, we don't have the case officer or indeed a tree officer here to tell us anything about that.
So, Chairman, so the only expert evidence we've got is what we were provided to by the objector in the report that was discussed, correct?
Well, and our tree officer in the officer report.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
I have a copy of the tempo assessment that was undertaken.
Oh, right. But that's not part of the report. Can we share that?
It informs the report, so it needs to be made clear.
Yes, it informs the report, and Mrs. Sander does have a copy of the District Council's tempo report, but it informs the officer report.
Just as a matter of process, when these tempos are carried out, they are very much intrinsic to how we consider these reports. We do see the report, we do see the process that the consultant goes through to actually achieve that. Obviously, they're the specialists, and that's what we rely on. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Siddle.
No, I'd like to propose that we support the officer's recommendation.
Okay. Seconded by Councillor Fleming. So it's proposed that we confirm the TPO as in line with the officer recommendation. That was Councillor Siddle, seconded by Councillor Fleming. Can we take that to the vote? Those in favour? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Those against? Just Councillor White against, the rest in favour.
I think the leading order should have a TPO. I'm okay with the
Okay, so that concludes that application. Item 9 is any other items of business the chairman of the committee decides are urgent, and you'll be delighted to hear there are none. So with thanks to officers and members of the public, I close the meeting at 8:52. Thank you, everyone.